Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. Happy Braves opening day. The Braves open their home season at Truist Park tonight. It's probably going on still right now, or it just ended, depending on when you checked in with us. Hopefully Spencer Strider went out there and dealt. We just had 2 days off. It's a tease, right? You get the opening week and then you get a rain out and then you have an off day. And it's like, I was restless these last few days, but they're finally back in Atlanta. They face the NL champion Diamondbacks. Should be a good series. Hopefully the Braves can come out on top. But a lot of this show today is going to focus on the Atlanta Falcons, who have a lot to do this offseason. And Alex, you just wrote something on the site. You guys can check it out at sportstalkatl.com. But we're going to talk about it right now. And it's the 5 kind of things that must happen before the start of the season. There's the obvious one, the NFL draft. It's at the end of the month. It's going to be the talk of a lot of this show this month. And we've talked about it for the last several months. But then you have an A.J. Terrell extension. Now that you kind of have, we did add a corner. We finally added to the defense. First defensive acquisition that wasn't a re-signing. But it does look like, especially since you're not going out there and getting another star corner, that A.J. Terrell extension has to be coming up soon.
Yeah, it's an absolute must. And maybe July or a late June, somewhere in the summer where there's maybe a little downtime for the Falcons. It's not going to come before the draft. I would be shocked. It's all hands deck for the draft. They have until May 2nd or 3rd, I believe, to pick up Kyle Pitts' 5th-year option. That's another to-do. That's also not really – I don't even know what kind of conversation that would even be. Like, Terry talks to Kyle Smith, Raheem Morris, and he's like, all right, yes, yes, yes. And then everybody goes, yes. Talk to Pitts' agent and say, we're going to exercise it. So that's a no-brainer. The contract extension is obviously much more complicated than just saying yes or no. And I think, you would be a fool to even think that I would go as high as like 90% chance a contract extension gets done for one reason.
With Terrell.
The Falcons aren't penny pinching. They do not care about saving $1 million here or there. You saw it with Chris Lindstrom. That deal is going to look better and better by the year. At the time, I was a little hesitant. But as the guard market has shaped up this offseason in particular, you're starting to see offensive guards get paid like, premier position players because the interior defensive line is getting paid like premier position players, a la Chris Jones, Christian Wilkins, obviously Aaron Donald, but he's retired. So guards are as important as, tackles maybe in some cases. So I would be shocked if a deal didn't come to fruition with A.J. Terrell before they even reported to like training camp.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even really think this is one that we have to stick too much on time. I mean, you said 90%. I would put it up there at the 95, almost closer to 99%. Like, it's going to happen. Like, and the Falcons have shown that they're not going to penny pinch about $19 or $20 million. If he wants to be the highest paid person, there's probably some things that they're maybe $1 million off. Maybe he wants to be the highest guaranteed corner. And does Terrell deserve it? Is he the best cornerback? No, but that's not how this thing works out. And the Falcons have shown that they're not really necessarily worried about them being the absolute best to get them paid. He's a pillar on this defense. They paid Grady Jarrett. They paid Chris Lindstrom. They pay the guys that come in here and do work. A.J. Terrell has done nothing but be a good corner and be an outstanding presence in the locker room. And obviously this defense can't afford to lose a corner. We don't even have any outside of him. There's not really any guy that you can say, oh yeah, he's going to be here for 4 or 5 years and start at the cornerback position. It's going to happen. The other thing, we talked about it all offseason, or really, really specifically over the last couple of weeks, is they've got to add to this defense. Not only do they need to extend A.J. Terrell, not only do they need to add to this defense through the draft, they got to add to this defense in free agency. Obviously, they just did that. What's his name that we signed from the Arizona Cardinals?
Antonio.
It's AB Antonio. I can't even remember.
I'm blanking. I think it's Antonio Williams. I can't believe I'm blanking. Keep going.
Regardless, they finally added to the cornerback room. That does give you a little bit of stability and depth at the position. We'll see if they add anything more. But the focus now is solely on the edge group. I mean, we've talked about this time and time again. And whether it's just bringing back Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell, or at least one of them, they've got to add to them. They got to add through the draft. It's got to be a completely overhaul. You are running out of time. There's not a lot of options on the free agent market, obviously. They're going to do a lot during the draft. but it's got to happen.
Yeah, Antonio Hamilton, excuse us for not knowing that off the top of our heads. It's because, I think when the Falcons announced it, a lot of Falcons fans were like, who? Sending owl emojis and things like that. And it's fair. One thing, I looked into it a little bit. The one thing he is he's durable and he's experienced. And for a Falcons cornerback room that is certainly not experienced outside of maybe Mike Hughes and obviously AJ Terrell, that's something that's important. You would have liked him. He did start a few games for the Cardinals last year. I thought it was going to be a starter in this league. This is a starting caliber guy, I guess. At the worst, he's valuable depth and special teams help, which is always important. I don't want to minimize the third phase of the game, but like Chase mentioned, the edge group, I looked at it and I looked at it from an optimistic viewpoint based on an article I just did. And let's just say Arnold Ebiketie improves upon his 6-sack season, because he didn't play, a prominent role on the defense in terms of snap count. So he flirts with double-digit sacks. Lorenzo Carter, let's not even act optimistic. He's a rotational player at best. D'Angelo Malone, I looked it up, took 2 defensive snaps last year. So expecting him to do anything more than kind of just show his colors a little bit is real naive, I would say, of the Falcons. And then you got Zach Harrison, who would be a bigger edge. He came along late. So let's say he could step up and give you, 6 sacks. Even still, that is not enough to even, remotely compete in the NFL playoffs. Like, pass rusher is the second most important position in the game, not just on defense, in the entire NFL. It's the second most important position. And the Falcons don't have that guy that they can rely on and kind of be like a baseball closer. Like the Falcons are on defense. There's a 2-minute drive. Who are you looking to make a game-changing play? Jesse Bates? Yeah, we love Jesse Bates, but how often do you see a safety, really making that game-sealing play, if it's not just an interception? So when you have a guy like a Daniil Hunter or a Jonathan Grenard or anybody else who can consistently get after the passer, it changes the complexion of a defense entirely. And before you finish, all of this that we just talked about is going to come with the Falcons making more cap space. Right now, they have around $6 million. The Taylor Heineke pay cut created a little bit more cap space. They need like $12 million just to sign the draft class. So moves are coming, whether it's restructures. AJ Terrell's contract extension could certainly create some cap space. I don't know how smart that is, but you can restructure Chris Lindstrom, Grady Jarrett, Jake Matthews, Jesse Bates, obviously Kirk Cousins, but that would be crazy to do without him taking a snap. The point is there are options, and all of the things we talked about, Terrell, Pitts, more defense, the draft, all comes after or with more cap space.
Yeah, I think it's $12 million but with the top 51 rule, they probably could do it with 6, but you want money for in-season moves. You want money to do these other things that we talked about, and they're going to make more moves. There is I would almost say 0% chance they do not add to their defensive line. We've already heard them say they want Calais Campbell back. They've gone after guys like Daniil Hunter. They've gone after trade pieces. They're trying to make moves. And if they were to make any of those moves, or let's say Hunter would have signed whatever they offered, they would have had to make more cap space. This is happening. Some guy lectured me on Twitter. Out of the blue, by the way, just out of the blue, it wasn't like a response to a tweet, just tweeted at me and was telling me that you cannot restructure contracts because it automatically gives you dead cap for future years. Well, it does push more dead cap to future years, but if the guy's on the roster, it's not dead cap. The guy is on the roster. What it does is it gives you a signing bonus. It gives the player upfront money. Signing bonuses are spread out throughout the entire year. Signing bonuses are dead cap. So that is what it does. But if the player is on the roster, like a Chris Lindstrom or a Jesse Bates or someone like that, they're going to get paid regardless. You're basically just guaranteeing them those extra years that weren't necessarily guaranteed. So yes, there is some risk, but if for a guy like Chris Lindstrom, for a guy like Jesse Bates, who are going to be on this team for several years, it's okay.
That's even beside the point. The point is the Falcons told you and me, whether you or I believe it, that they think they're contenders with Kirk Cousins. Now, if you're going to go 1 foot in and be like, we are going to give Kirk Cousins, $100 million guaranteed. But we're going to try and stay relatively healthy with the cap because we're not. No. That is not how it works. That is not how you build a championship team. You're saying one thing and you're doing another. As Mark Zeno says, the actions have to match the words. And this is the exact point. The Falcons are in a win now mode. Whether you believe it or I believe it, that's beside the point. The Falcons believe it because they gave Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed. We're in a window to win right now, sacrificing future cap space is the price to pay for competing. You restructure a couple contracts. We're not in cap hell like the Saints. The Saints did it for a decade to continue to push the chips in. That is not the case for the Atlanta Falcons.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it several times that the Falcons are in incredible standing with the salary cap. Not only are they set up to have plenty of cap space next year, they haven't restructured any of these deals. And like I said, there's minimal risk when you're restructuring a player that is going to be here. The guys that they've restructured in the past, since the Julio Jones, Matt Ryan restructures, because those are the kind of ones that get you in trouble. When you restructure them so much that you're fully guaranteeing deals to aging players and stuff like that. But since then, it's been the Jake Matthews. It's been stuff like that. Guys that who are going to be here. And guess what? Jake Matthews, one of the healthiest players, played pretty much every game since he came in as the Falcons. He's here. No dead cap with that. That's the way you got to be thinking about this with Chris Lindstrom and Jesse Bates. But Alex, you bring up a good point. The Falcons are in win now mode, which makes it confusing for our next topic that they sent a sizable group to hold a private workout with one of the top quarterback prospects. We're going to discuss it after the break.